Hey guys, welcome back to another 3D printing video. And as you guys can see, we got a pretty large box sitting on the floor, which is quite unusual. So this is the largest 3D printing box that I ever had. And another reason why this is special for me is that this is my first Delta 3D printer. And so this is the Monoprice Delta Pro. So in this video, we're gonna unbox it, set it up, and do some prints. All right, so hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let's get started. Alright, so before we open the box, let's take a look over here. So we got 12 kilograms, which is 26.5 pounds. That's the printer itself, and this is with the packaging. It's 40 pounds, it's quite heavy. And then here's our dimensions for the box itself, which is 20 by 20 by 37 inches. So definitely quite large, but not too heavy though. Alright, so let's open it up. Okay, so this is interesting. It's not too compactly packaged. You have some boxes right on the top. So this looks like our power supply, and this thing is huge. And at the end of it, we have a pretty unique plug, and it is 24 volts, 9.2 amps. So very interesting packing. So here we have another box. The quick start guide and sensor for the leveling maybe. Our US power cord. Looks like a few Allen wrenches, some kind of rod, a stylus pen, and some shims. Very interesting. So here we have, looks like an extra hot end. It's quite an interesting design. And then we have another spare. It looks like just the heating block. So they include two spares. And both of the spares have the 0.4 nozzle on them. So that's quite interesting how they have two of them, unless I got an extra one by mistake. Of course, one of them is with the heatsink and the other one is just the heat block. So yeah, very interesting packaging, very loose. There's a lot of air that's in this big box. All right, so it gets pretty exciting, and it looks like the printer is fully assembled, and it makes sense for such a large box. Go ahead and take the foam out. So it is packed quite well with this soft foam. So reaching down in there, there was a spool that's just sitting in there. It looks like it's a whole roll of black PLA. It's actually PLA plus. Very nice that they include a whole roll. So I grabbed the camera off the tripod so you guys can see. There's a lot of air in this box. So the box is definitely bigger than it needs to be, but technically, how do you pack something that's a big triangle and that's tall? So, but in any case, so I'm just gonna grab it and pull it out. All right, and so that's everything for the box. So I got the printer on the table, and you guys can see how tall it is. It's quite tall, and there's a plastic bag over it, so let's go ahead and take that off. So this is quite a nice printer. It's fully aluminum, looks like. We're gonna take a closer look at it here in a second. I'm gonna cut this bag loose here. So this appears to be the mechanism with the hot end at the end of it. All right, well that's quite interesting and different. So because this is my first Delta printer, this definitely is quite new to me, and I think overall it's pretty straightforward, but I'm sure we'll figure it out. All right, so we're looking down at it right now at the bed, and it looks like we have a little cardboard protection and a zip tie. Let's go ahead and cut that. Okay, so it looks like there's 3 anchor points here that go up and down, and this is the core of the Delta. The way it works, it controls individual arms, and that's how it moves. So there's one arm here, and then another here, and one in the back. And if you guys can see, we have a really nice glass bed that's actually blacked out. It looks very nice. It looks like a nice piece of furniture. So I think the way this works is we need to bring these guys up, and then we're gonna grab our hot end assembly here, and it appears to be that this is the front where the fan is. And it looks like these rods here are magnetic, and so they just magnetize to the little ball here. And sure enough, that's what happens. Well, that's really nice. It's quite an easy installation. There we go. So now this is sturdy and is able to move. Now what's interesting is you can completely pull the rod out if you wanted to. So I'm not sure what kind of material this is, but it's definitely ultra light. It might be carbon fiber. There's some kind of weave in there that I can see kind of, but it's blacked out and feels quite strong, almost like metal. Or maybe it's just a piece of aluminum, but in any case, That's pretty cool. All right, so let's grab these instructions here and see what we should be doing. And this is the leveling sensor, it looks like, that we're probably going to be using. It looks like we have a pretty large piece of paper. Well, that's quite interesting. There's nothing on the back side, and then everything's on one side. All right, so I guess let's start with step 1 here. And step 1 is basically telling us to install the printhead here, just like we did with the fan going to the front. So we got that part right. Now the other thing we need to do is install the spool holder, and that was that little rod that we saw earlier. So in this baggie here, the rod and a bolt, and we're gonna need a wrench. So what we're looking at here is the very top, and there's a hole right here, and so the bolt will go on the other end, and the rod has a threaded part on one end, and we'll just thread that into the bolt, and then we'll tighten it up with the Allen wrench. And that is our spool holder. So the spool sits right here, and maybe you guys can see there is a filament detector. It's kind of hard to see, but you guys can see from here. And then here we have the floating extruder, and the motor on the extruder is actually quite large, and all these pieces are metal, so everything is pretty high quality. So there's not very many steps, just installing that rod and then plugging the machine in, and then after that it's ready for auto leveling. So yeah, there's not much to do here as far as installation goes, but here we can see on the right side there's that plug. So I connected the brick to the power, and we can see it's glowing blue, and our power cord will go right here. Let's flip it back around. All right, so before we power it on, let's take a moment and look at the build construction and just the way it's put together and how everything functions. So this being my first Delta printer, I'm pretty excited to see how it prints. I definitely have a lot of printing time with i3 style machines, so this is definitely going to be interesting and something new to me. Now with that said, this is, you know, a more higher end printer. So but one thing I'm noticing right away about Delta printer is that since you need so much room for the arms, it has to be very tall, but the maximum volume will be about halfway or so. So all the space above that is just for the travel for the arms. So that's one thing to consider, is that Delta printer will always be tall. All right, so let's start here on the top. So here we have the spool holder, which will carry the spool. And our filament will go in here and then into the extruder, and then from the extruder through the PTFE tubing into the hot end. So the whole printer is metal. It has really nice finished aluminum extrusion, and you guys can see how the corner is built here. We have like a V channel, and it looks like the way it's designed, it's quite strong and rigid, and how it all goes together. And you guys can see we have idler pulleys on the very top. That's for the belts that run all the way down, and there's a motor. You can't really see it, but it's underneath there. There's a motor on each corner that runs belts, and the belts connect to these brackets here, which looks like it runs on a linear rails of some sort, or some kind of rail. But looking at it a little closer, I don't know if you guys can see, but they're actually just regular rollers, just a regular V slot rollers. I guess there's slots inside of this channel here that they roll in. So that's quite interesting. So we're still using the same plastic rollers, just in a different way. Instead of squeezing around the channel, it pushes out into the channel. And so the way the travel works is there's 3 rollers. I don't know if you guys can see, but there's 1, 2, 3. And the center one is actually adjustable. So there's a little set screw there. If you loosen that up, and then there's 2 holes that you can stick like a tool in there and then turn it, and that'll tighten and loosen the roller in the middle. So each axis has its own end stop. All of them are up here on the very top on each corner. And that tells the motors where to home, and so it homes on the top. All right, so far this is quite an interesting printer indeed. So if we look down here, the bed is very, very unique. At least to me it is. First of all, it's not a circle. Normally these printers have circle beds, but this one kind of like goes out to the edges, and there are some knobs here that looks like we can take off and maybe remove the bed. I think we should do that to see what's underneath it. But it's quite a nice design, and it's glass. It's literally glass, and it's blacked out, so quite a unique look for sure. So as we go down here, we see that we have the same kind of heavy duty channels of aluminum here. Here we have a touchscreen display, a logo, that's Delta Pro, Monoprice, the on and off switch right here on the side, and on the left side we have a USB, and this is where we're going to bring the files into the printer. So as we go to the sides, there's nothing really too interesting here, just a clean channel. And on the right side we have the power plug here, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to try to tilt the printer over a bit so we can see what's underneath. And you guys can see we have some rubber feet there. Looks like a cover. We can see some kind of electronics there, but overall looks like a pretty clean bottom. All right, so let's go ahead and try to take these knobs off here. So it looks like a knob with a bolt on it, quite small actually. And there's a rubber piece that goes in between, and it's actually loose. and there we can see the nut, and the nut can travel inside the channel. So if you're going to take this off, watch out for all these parts. We're going to go ahead and try to get this off so we can see what's underneath. And there are 6 of them too on each corner. Actually guys, I think I told you this was rubber. This is just hard plastic actual that goes underneath the bed, the spacers. All right, so all of them are out. Let's go ahead and see what happens. All right, so the bed does come up, and there is a plug. I'm going to try to unplug this so we can see a little better. So we do have an insulation foam. That's nice. And here's our plug for the power. And there is an aluminum keypad right below the glass, and it's round. As you guys can see, this is the printing surface, which is 270 millimeters in a circle. All right, so it looks like if we want to see what's below here, we need to take off this cover. And so that's quite simple. There's 6 Phillips bolts. And these are really tiny little bolts, so definitely need to be a little careful with them. All right, so this plate should just come right off. And there we go. And now we can really see everything exposed. So here we can see the 3 motors on each corner. We have a cooling fan. Looks like we have a separate circuit to the heat bed with a synced MOSFET. And here we have the main board, which has an ARM processor on it. So it appears to have a Wi-Fi connection here, because it does say Wi-Fi on this little chip here. Well, that's quite interesting. So we do have removable stepper drivers, and they are heat sinked, and we got a fan that blows right on them. So overall, quite simple and clean design. All right, so I'm gonna put the cover back on and the glass bed back on, and then we're gonna go ahead and try to power it on, home it to check, make sure everything's working, preheat it, and then we'll try to use the out of bed leveling sensor to level the bed. So as I was putting the bed back on, I realized that these knobs here, they didn't have to be taken off completely. Like what you could have done is just loosen them, and then they slide on the rail here. They can move back and forth. And essentially the heating pad is not sitting on that piece of metal. These little plastic spacers, they hold the glass up just a little bit on each corner, just like that. So you use the top bolt just to very lightly snug them. It doesn't have to be tight. And that's how it sits on every corner. All right, so it's time to power it on. The switch is right here underneath, so let's go ahead and turn it on. And it boots up nicely, and I can hear the fan running inside, and overall it's quite quiet. So here we can see the Monoprice Delta Pro UI, and it looks really nice and clean. So here we have the hot end temperature, the bed temperature. Looks like that's some kind of power or something. Okay, yeah, so it's actually asking me if I want to restart or shut it down. So here we have some kind of settings button. Let's click that. Okay, so this looks like more advanced settings. I'm not going to mess with that. Then we have in the middle here, we have the play button, and I'm guessing, okay, so that's reading the card. So it's USB, computer, or SD card. Now I didn't notice that this thing has an SD card. So our only options would be to use the USB port or the computer. And when we go to the computer, we actually have some kind of Wi-Fi settings we can do here. So I guess there's maybe a way of how to connect wirelessly to the printer. And here we have the normal settings, and that's what we're looking for. So we have the home button and the move button, and you can see we can move the axes in different directions and different distances. Unlock motor, fan, light. Does this thing have a light? Lighting. I guess some printers have light options. That looks like maybe bed leveling and temperature and filament. So let's go ahead and do the home first and see what happens. Want to make sure all of our axes work. I'm going to grab the camera so we can see a little better, but I'm going to go ahead and click that home button. And there it goes. Wow, it's quite quick. Okay, so each end stop on each corner activated, and that's where it sits naturally, or at least that's the home position. Let's click this fan. Turns on the cooling fan, and that's these 2 part cooling fans, and they just came on, and I can feel there is a lot of air coming out of it. All right, so let's click on this. I think this is bed leveling, but before we click that, I think we need to install this sensor. And the way the sensor installs is quite simple. There's actually a plug right here that runs out, and that'll plug in right there, and then the other end will go over the tip of the nozzle. Just like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and click that and see what happens. Okay, so it's moving around. Okay, it homed itself, and it looks like we get a few options here. So we can do it manually, or we can click out of leveling. So I guess that's what we need to do. And here we can also set the offset, looks like. Well, let's go ahead and click out of leveling, see what happens. All right, so it's moving down. Oh wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's actually doing it. And it's quite cool how the whole thing moves. It's very interesting. So you can kind of see it going corner to corner. So it looks like everything's operating like it's supposed to. Wow, it's doing a stretch right there. The Delta printer is definitely unique. This is my first time seeing one in operation, and I'm quite found by it, to be honest. Taking a lot of measurements. All right, and that's it. And now it's just going up. So I guess now officially it's ready to go since it's auto leveled itself. So now we just got to keep this thing in a safe place just in case we need to do it again sometimes in the future. But I have a feeling there should not be a reason for that technically. So since everything is sitting quite solid, there's no possibility of flexing or any parts moving. So for the next part, let's go ahead and click on the preheat button. And here we can see we have a few options. We can preheat PLA, ABS, or a user setting. So let's just click on the PLA. The hot end is going to go to 205 and the bed is going to go to 70. I have a feeling that because the bed is quite large, the glass piece, it's going to take a longer for it to heat up than it needs to because of all this extra glass. And as I initiated the preheat, the heat break fan came on. So the hot end got there really quick, definitely less than a minute seems like. So that was ultra fast. But the bed, you guys can see, it's taking a very long time. So yeah, it's going to take a little bit to get this thing hot. It is getting warm though. So as the printer is preheating, let's go ahead and install some filament. So I'm going to use a roll of black filament that I already have. And let's see how this thing sits in there. Definitely a different way to do a spool holder. And also this filament detector is kind of in a weird place, but okay, so it comes off completely. All right, so that's good. There's an arrow on here also which way the filament should flow. Okay, so this makes sense now that it's free. So it just kind of flows with the filament. That's definitely a much better idea than connecting it solid because that usually wears out plastic and then it starts to jam everything. All right, hopefully you guys can see that a little better. So we're gonna grab the filament detector. We're gonna feed the filament through it. On the other side, we can see there's a little light here that glows green when it detects filament. And it's definitely a mechanical switch in there that detects it. So after that, we're gonna go into the extruder. We're gonna compress the arm. And then we're gonna feed it through all the way until it goes into the PTFE tubing. And then that's gonna go all the way down to the hot end. And so I'm just gonna manually push it through and we should be able to see it coming out. And there it goes. So it looks like there was a little bit of white there from the factory. So now that we purged it, we're pretty much ready to go. And the bed took probably around 2 to 3 minutes. I would say closer to 3 minutes to heat up. So normally 70 is a little bit higher than normal. PLA usually 60 is just right. So I think for 60 it shouldn't take more than 2 to 3 minutes. So it's kind of strange to me that the printer was not included with a thumb drive or even a cable to connect. I think what they want you to do is maybe use the Wi-Fi. But I really like doing it the old school way where I put it on a thumb drive and then bring it to the printer. All right, so I got a USB to micro SD card adapter and I sliced a Benchy in Cura. So let's go ahead and plug it in and see if we can start our first print. All right, so it looks like it's reading the card. Actually, guys, I totally forgot about using the stylus that came with it. So I think this touchscreen here reacts better to something like a fine point instead of your finger. That's why they included this. So let's go ahead and choose our 3D Benchy. It's asking us if we want to print the model. Yes. And there we go. It started. So I'm going to be ready to shut it off just in case because I have no idea what's going to happen. All right, so it's homing right now and it's coming down. Actually, very fast. It's almost freaky. It looks like it's perfect, literally, off the bed. Wow, that's unbelievable. Very nice. So it's working out. So I sliced the Benchy with the speed of 50 millimeters per second. So what I want to do is I want to try to print this one and then I'll print another one at 100 millimeters. And then maybe just for fun, we'll print one at 150 and we'll have 3 different Benchies. And black is a good color to print them in because there'll be a lot of detail. So as it's printing, let's take a closer look here at the UI. So over here we have some information. It says printing. And then this is where the Z-axis is, which is a 0.3 millimeters high off the bed. This is the percentage of how much it's done. The file name, the hot end temperature, the bed temperature. And then we have a few options here. We have stop, pause, and some more options. Here we can increase the speed rate or decrease it, the extrusion rate, the hot end temperature, and then the bed temperature. Looks like there's an arrow right here. Okay, so there's more. There's cooling fan, change filament, and complete off. Not sure what that means. I guess shut it down completely. So that's all the options we have. All right, so we're printing away and everything seems to be okay. The parts cooling fans just turned on and they're definitely audible. Yeah, I'm gonna bring the microphone in. So quite close to it. But surprisingly, the stepper motor's sound is not there. It's mostly fan cooling sound. So it appears to me that everything is fine. Now, I didn't even wipe down the bed. I touched it a bunch of times with my greasy fingers, so hopefully it's gonna be okay. But it looks like everything's fine for now. I don't really see any issues. So we're just gonna let it print and we'll see what comes out of it. And here from a distance, you guys can kind of see how all the 3 different axes articulate to make the movement down there. It's quite unique because on the bottom it has to stay flat. So in order to stay flat, the calculations on where these motors move up and down is quite amazing. It's kind of like a Core XY machine, except even more extreme because it's using 3 motors instead of 2 motors to calculate. Now the big advantage of the Delta printer is it's able to have a very light weight on the moving parts. Everything you see here, that's all it has to move. So it's able to print at a very high speed with quite high precision. But we're definitely going to test out the speeds on 3 benchies. I can tell you right now that it's already boogieing along much faster than it normally would. So here we can see our extruder. It's pushing filament through and retracting. And our filament detector is okay just right there. So it's just kind of floating there. So that seems like a good place for it. Well, that's a lot of retractions. Keeps going back and forth. But yeah, you can see how quick it's pushing that filament in. And here we have a top view of what it looks like. Alright, so our last benchy is done. And believe it or not, guys, this one was printed at 150 millimeters per second. So we got 3 benchies. We got 50 millimeters per second, and then 100, and then 150. And I decided to print them all in 0.12 layer height. And I have to say, guys, the results are quite impressive. So let's start with our first one here, which is the 50 millimeters per second. So if we look at the reflections here, and let's not forget this is a black filament, so we can really see everything very well. I'm quite astonished at how good the walls turned out. Now there is a little bit of ringing, but it's very fine. So right off the bat, the quality is definitely there. And if we look at the rest of it, you guys can see how nice the filament is sitting. Now there was some kind of trouble here, and I'm guessing that was the file corrupted. So not sure what happened there, but the other 2 benchies didn't have this, so something happened. But in any case, if we ignore that, we can see that the benchy is printed extremely well. And it has like this interesting finish to it, which I'm really liking. So this is very, very impressive. So the 50 millimeter one took about 2.5 hours, I think, to print. And then this one at 100 millimeters took 1 hour and 30 minutes, I think, somewhere around there. But as you guys can see, the quality is almost the same. I can tell that there's a little bit more artifacts in the 100 millimeters per second. So it's not as smooth, but it's ever so slightly, so it's still very nice. Like for a larger part, this would not be an issue at all. For something more delicate, more of a small scale, you know, going to 100 might not be the best for this printer. Maybe the sweet spot would be around 80 or something. But we can see the cooling is very decent. It's not amazing, but it is good. There's a little bit of sag under here, but that's not terrible. So maybe the cooling ducts could be somewhat adjusted or modified, and so then I printed the 150 millimeters per second, which I thought was not going to turn out very well, but it actually looks really good. There's actually not much distinction, or almost at all, that I can tell from this one and the 100 millimeters. Now I think it does have a little bit more layering lines, but it's ever so slightly. Now let's not forget that we're looking at black filament, so this is very, very revealing. Now, I don't think this is true 150 because I think the printer might be limiting the speed because the time that it took to print this and this wasn't drastically reduced. Because from the 50 to 100, it was like an hour less to print. But from 100 to 150, it only shaved off like 20 minutes or something like that, 15 to 20 minutes. So not a huge difference. Even though it's capable to do 150, I think those speeds are at its capabilities. So if it's like doing certain turns or whatever, it mechanically can't speed up to that fast is what's going on. So that's why the higher speed is not really saving us too much. So I would say around 100 turns out very nice, and maybe even a little less would be very economical time-wise, and you get great quality. So far I'm really intrigued and impressed by this printer. Number one, I didn't expect this good of a quality, and number two, the speed and the articulation of the Delta style printing is quite intriguing. So I'm gonna go ahead and slice and print a bunch of other things, and we'll take a closer look at the different models and the print quality, and we'll also talk about if this printer is right for you. All right, so we printed quite a few models and they all turned out really good. So overall, the Delta Pro is a solid machine and seems to work very well and puts out really quick prints at a very respectable speed. So we've looked at the 3 benchies, which were printed at a more fine resolution, but the rest of the prints I decided to print in 0.15 layer height. So let's go ahead and look at the Calibration Cube. So here we can see how nice it turned out. Now, if you guys notice the reflections, the layers are sitting very well. And there's very minimal ghosting or anything weird. So very nice print. And here's what our top looks like. And the bottom also is perfect. So the Calibration Cube turned out really nice. And by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I printed everything at 60 millimeters per second. So not super fast, but technically not slow either. So the next thing we got here is a bearing. And the way this thing works is it uses gears. And if you hold the middle and turn it, you can see how the mechanical parts move. So I really like this print because it kind of shows the capability and the tolerances of a 3D printer. So when this printed, it was very easy to break it loose and it would spin. So that just tells me that the accuracy of the printer is very good. And you guys can see how easily it spins. So this is really nice to know if you can print functional parts and they will work. So this printer is definitely capable. So the next print we're going to look at is this tugboat. And the reason I wanted to print it because I wanted to have more details in the print. And you guys can see maybe the reflections somewhat. It's really, really nice. So I'm really liking how the prints come out on this printer. They're all very pleasant in the way the layers are bonded. But if you look up close, I don't know if you guys can see, but there's actually a person inside of there. It's kind of probably hard to see, and a wheel. But the details on these finer lines are really good. And overall, it's just really impressive how everything turned out. So here we have a huge bolt, and I printed this kind of for fun and I scaled it. This is actually a smaller part from a clamp that holds headphones, I think. But this is really intriguing because the quality of the print is very nice. I mean, even if you look at the top here, the tops usually never turn out this good. And just the way it looks and feels, I guess more of a injection mold feeling. And I think it has something to do with the pattern that this printer puts into the filament. It's like a really fine grain, and you can kind of tell, but I don't know if you guys will see it on the camera, but just really pleasant how it turns out. And the bottom turned out pretty good too. All right, and we couldn't go without printing the space guy with the spaceship. So let's go ahead and take a look at the space guy first. So overall, he turned out pretty good. So this is silky silver. It's kind of like a shiny silver. You can see how the layers are sitting pretty good. Now there is a little bit of layering, but it doesn't seem like that's on the surface of it. It's just like some kind of discoloring or something. The reflections, they're quite nice. And even on the bottom of his shoes, it turned out really good. But this print did expose one of the main drawbacks to this printer, and that is the parts cooling. Even though it has 2 fans, you guys can see that over here on the overhang, there's a lot of drippage. That's due to not having a good cooling. So it seems like it has a lot of air going, but just not maybe in the right directions. So That is definitely one of the things that needs to be upgraded on this printer is the cooling ducts. But other than that, the Space Guy turned out really well. So our last print is the spaceship, and it's printed in this gold. And I haven't pulled it off yet. And one of the things that I haven't mentioned yet is that this bed, since it's glass, it actually doesn't stick as well as you would think. So I had to use a little bit of glue, like stick glue, to keep the prints stuck to the glass. So it would have been a lot cooler if they used one of those perforated glass beds where when it heats up it sticks, and then when it cools it pops right off. So, but in any case, glass still works pretty well. And I haven't cut this spaceship loose yet, and it is glued, so I will have to use a spatula to cut him loose. But as you guys saw that, you know, once it goes, it just pops right off. So it's not a big issue at all. Taking the prints off and taking something like this off is quite fragile. So yeah, the rocket turned out really nice. So we can see our bottom here, pretty good. Looks like we had a little bit of something happen here. But other than that, it looks really good. The filament layers are very even. And just a pleasant print overall. Now there is some lines in the print of some kind of artifacts. They're quite subtle, you can almost not see them, but at certain angles you can. And I think that just has to do with the motions of the Delta style movement. But overall, it's a very solid, beautiful print. And here you guys can see, hopefully a little bit closer up. And as we go to the top here, you can see that there's actually holes here, little small holes all around these little bumps. And as we go all the way up, we can see that this part is so thin and so fragile that there's no way that spiralized mode could print this thin of a layer, so it just kind of piled it up. But we can see the layers bond very well, and if I push on it, it doesn't crack or doesn't break. So, and it just feels strong overall, like it's not just gonna break easily. Of course, that has a little bit to do with the filament also, but the way it's put down and fused together has a lot to do with the printer. And by the way, guys, the full length of this spaceship all the way to the tip is almost 300 millimeters. So we pretty much use the whole Z-axis in height there. So you can kind of see how big you can print. And that's another thing to consider about this kind of 3D printer, is that your volume is not as big of what you can print compared to how large this printer is. So overall, guys, I'm really intrigued and impressed by this printer. Yes, I don't think this is for everyone, because not everyone needs to have a printer like this, unless timing is the uttermost important part for you. If you need high quality prints at a fast rate, this is where the Delta printer comes in. And the Delta Pro here is made out of very high grade material. Everything is very nicely put together and made, and definitely feels like it's for the long haul. Meaning this printer is for somebody that prints very heavily and needs to get the prints out fast. And the Delta Pro here markets itself to being 30 to 60% faster than other printers, you know, while retaining very respectable quality. And not just respectable, but I would say very acceptable by means of prototyping. If somebody came and showed me this, or let's say I wanted someone to print this for me so I can look at it and test it and whatnot else, or even use it, I would be highly impressed to see something like this. So with the price tag of this printer, it's definitely geared towards more of the pros and people that, you know, take 3D printing into more of a serious or more even of a business type of view. So overall, I'm really enjoying this printer, and I feel like it's definitely built to last. So I'm definitely giving this one a thumbs up. And if you're interested in a printer like this, I'm gonna leave some links in the description, so check that out. And if you guys enjoyed this video, then hit that like button. If you wanna see more videos like this and other 3D printing stuff I do on this channel, and you're not subscribed, then hit that subscribe button to see more. And also, guys, check out my other 3D printing videos. I got a bunch of them. I'm sure you might find some of them quite interesting. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.